The crystalline vessels of the Varlaxian fleet hung in space like frozen lightning, their geometrically perfect forms refracting starlight across 1,000 facets. Each ship was a city-sized testament to their mastery over the physical realm, housing billions of immortal minds, linked in a singular consciousness that had ruled the known universe for longer than most species had existed. High Admiral Velara, or rather the fragment of the unified consciousness that currently occupied that role, observed the eternal dance of their patrol ships through the quantum crystal displays that lined their command center. The displays weren't screens in any conventional sense. They were windows into reality itself, showing truth on a level that lesser species couldn't comprehend. Another sector secured. The report echoed through the collective consciousness. No anomalies detected in the quantum fabric. Velara acknowledged the report with a thought, their crystalline form shifting colors in satisfaction. For millennia, this had been the routine. Patrol, secure, maintain order. The Varlaxians had long since eliminated the concept of chaos from their domain. Every particle, every wave, every quantum fluctuation moved according to their precisely calculated laws. Until it didn't. The first indication that something was wrong came as a ripple through the collective consciousness, a discordant note in their perfect symphony of existence. Velara's crystalline form shifted to a deep azure of concern as data streamed through their awareness. Impossible, they broadcasted to the collective. But the readings persisted. Something was moving through their outer defensive perimeter, but it wasn't moving through space in any way their sensors could properly quantify. It was as if space itself was being crushed and expanded around the object, like a piece of paper being folded by an unseen hand. "Deploy the 7th Fleet," Velara commanded. The response was immediate. A dozen city ships, each housing millions of unified minds, shifted their perfect crystalline forms into attack formations that had been refined over thousands of years. The unknown vessel's response defied every prediction their quantum computers had generated. Instead of retreating or assuming a defensive posture, it continued its erratic movement pattern. One moment, it was at the edge of their sensor range. The next, it had somehow shifted to a completely different sector without crossing the space between. "Analysis," Velara demanded. The collective consciousness churned with possibilities, each one more disturbing than the last. The vessel's movement pattern matched no known species in their vast database. Its method of propulsion violated at least 3 fundamental laws of physics, laws the Varlaxians had established and enforced across the galaxy. "It appears to be folding space," one analysis thread suggested, the very concept sending ripples of disbelief through the collective. "Impossible," Velara repeated, but with less certainty. "Space cannot be folded like common matter. We established this truth when we first achieved unity." Yet the evidence continued to mount. The vessel was small, barely larger than a Varlaxian scout ship, but it moved with a freedom that challenged everything they thought they knew about spatial mechanics. It didn't traverse space. It manipulated it, twisted it, made it dance to a rhythm that should not exist. The 7th Fleet's attempts to intercept proved futile. Their perfectly calculated maneuvers were met with movements that seemed almost random, yet somehow purposeful. It was like trying to catch smoke with tweezers. Velara felt something they hadn't experienced in 10,000 years: doubt. The collective consciousness stirred uneasily as the realization spread. They had encountered something truly new, something that didn't play by their rules, something that might force them to question truths they had held as absolute since before most species had mastered fire. "All fleets," Velara broadcasted, their crystalline form pulsing with determination, "converge on the anomaly. Whatever this entity is, wherever it came from, it has entered our domain, and nothing challenges the kings of the universe without consequence." The order rippled through the collective consciousness, and across the sector, massive crystalline ships began to move. The hunt had begun, but for the first time in their eternal history, the Varlaxians weren't certain of the outcome. Dr. Amanda Brooks stared at the coffee stain on her whiteboard, trying to decide if it looked more like Einstein or a particularly disheveled sheep. After 72 hours of checking equations and running simulations, everything was starting to look like physics equations, even her breakfast. "Doctor," Lieutenant James Rodriguez called from his station. "The origami drive is holding steady at 97% efficiency. We're officially breaking several laws of physics." "Good," Amanda mumbled, taking another sip from her Nasa mug. Laws were meant to be broken, especially the ones about space-time being inflexible. She turned to face the bridge of the RSS Dauntless, Earth's first experimental vessel equipped with what she dubbed the Spatial Folding Drive, though the crew's nickname of Origami Drive had stuck instead. The bridge itself was surprisingly ordinary, a retrofitted design from standard Earth ships, with the only notable difference being the holographic displays showing the impossible geometries their ship was creating in space. That, and the small origami crane sitting on Amanda's console, her lucky charm and inspiration for the drive itself. "Ma'am," Sarah Martinez, their sensor specialist, straightened in her chair. "We're picking up some unusual readings." "Actually, scratch that. We're picking up a lot of unusual readings." Amanda moved to peer over Sarah's shoulder, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. The sensor displays were lighting up like a Christmas tree, showing massive structures that seemed to be made of living crystal. "Well, that's new. Are they natural formations?" "No, Doctor." Sarah's voice held a note of awe. "They're ships. Massive ones. And they're moving to surround us." The bridge crew fell silent. This was supposed to be a simple test flight. Fold space a few times in an uninhabited sector, collect data, go home, and prove to the skeptics at NASA that space-time manipulation was possible. First contact with an alien civilization hadn't been on the agenda. "How did we not detect them earlier?" Rodriguez asked, his hands hovering over the navigation controls. Amanda's tired brain kicked into high gear. "Because we've been folding space around us. We probably skipped right past their normal detection methods until we started maintaining a stable fold." She paused, watching the crystalline ships move with impossible grace. "They're beautiful." "They're also charging weapons," Sarah reported, her voice remarkably calm. "Very big weapons." Amanda nodded absently, her mind racing through calculations. Everyone remember the mission briefing about first contact protocols. "You mean the one where they told us don't make first contact? You're just testing a drive that probably won't work." Rodriguez grinned. "That briefing. That's the one." Amanda returned to her station, fingers flying over the controls. "Well, I propose we ignore it completely." "Sarah, are you recording all this? The quantum fluctuations from their ships are unlike anything I've ever seen." "Doctor," Rodriguez interrupted, "maybe we should focus on the fact that we're surrounded by alien warships." Amanda looked up, her eyes bright with the kind of curiosity that had gotten her into trouble and led to breakthroughs all her life. "Oh, we are focusing on it. But we're scientists first. If we're about to make history, we might as well get good data out of it." She straightened up, smoothing her rumpled NASA uniform. "Besides, we have something they don't. A death wish," Sarah suggested. "Better." Amanda picked up her paper crane, grinning. "We have no idea what we're doing. That makes us unpredictable." "Sarah, open all scanning frequencies. If they want to talk, let's talk. If they want to fight." She gestured to the holographic displays showing their drive's effect on space-time. "Well, we'll show them why humans never should have been trusted with physics in the first place." The crystalline ships drew closer, their formations perfect, their movements synchronized. The Dauntless's crew watched, caught between terror and amazement, as humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization approached. Amanda set her coffee mug down and cracked her knuckles. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, plot me a course that breaks about." She paused, considering 7 laws of physics. "Let's show these folks." The Varlaxian pursuit fleet moved like a perfectly choreographed dance of light and crystal, their formations honed by millennia of unified thought. They had surrounded the human vessel in a dodecahedron pattern that had never failed to capture prey in 10,000 years of enforcement. Until now. Did they just? Valera's consciousness rippled with disbelief. Fold their ship in half. The RSS Dauntless had indeed appeared to fold in on itself, like a piece of paper being creased by an invisible hand. The sensors showed it occupying an impossible space, existing in 2 dimensions for a fraction of a second before popping back into normal space behind the Varlaxian fleet. Inside the Dauntless, Dr. Amanda Brooks was laughing. Not the nervous laughter of someone facing death, but the genuine mirth of a scientist watching her theories punch reality in the face. "That's not supposed to be possible," Sarah Martinez announced, her hands flying over the sensor controls. "Doctor, we just briefly existed as a 2-dimensional object. The laws of physics are crying." "Physics will get over it," Amanda replied, watching the crystalline ships scramble to reorient themselves. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, how's our origami drive holding up?" 98% efficiency, he reported with a grin. "Whatever we did it really well. Also, I think we made their sensors throw up." The Varlaxian fleet's second attempt at containment was more aggressive. They generated a quantum-locked field of pure energy designed to hold space itself in stasis. It was their ultimate containment technique, requiring the synchronized power of 12 city ships. Amanda studied the readings with academic interest. "Fascinating. They're trying to stabilize local spacetime to prevent folding." "Sarah, are you getting this? This is definitely going in the paper, assuming we live long enough to write it." "Already recording," Sarah confirmed. "Also, they're charging something big. Like rewrite the local laws of physics big." Amanda nodded, reaching for her cold coffee. "Well, we can't let them have all the fun." "Rodriguez, remember that maneuver we simulated but labeled absolutely not. This is insane." The Klein bottle fold. Rodriguez's eyes widened. "That was theoretical. We said it would probably turn the ship inside out. Probably is just possibly with better PR." Amanda set down her mug and picked up her paper crane. "Besides, their field only works in normal space. Let's see how it handles a ship that technically doesn't have an inside or an outside." The Varlaxian collective consciousness watched in horror as the human vessel began to fold in ways that shouldn't be possible in 3-dimensional space. Their sensors tried to track the movement and failed spectacularly, sending cascading errors through their network. "They're turning their ship into a Klein bottle," one of the analysis threads reported, its tone somewhere between terror and admiration. "They're making their ship topologically impossible." Valera's consciousness pulsed with frustration. "Nothing is impossible. Reality follows rules. Our rules." The Dauntless chose that moment to prove them wrong. The ship folded through itself, becoming a paradox of geometry that existed in 4 dimensions, possibly 5. The sensors couldn't quite agree. Warning signals screamed through the Varlaxian fleet as their reality anchoring field encountered something that simply refused to play by the established rules of spacetime. "How?" Valera demanded. "How are they doing this?" Inside the Dauntless, alarms were blaring as the ship did things that ships were never meant to do. The crew held on as reality twisted around them, protected by fields they barely understood. "Doctor," Rodriguez called out, "we're about to set a new record for most physical laws broken in a single maneuver." Amanda grinned, watching the holographic displays show their ship's impossible geometry. "Make sure you log it. NASA's going to love this, assuming they don't court-martial us all first." The Varlaxian fleet's perfect formation broke as their containment field collapsed, unable to handle the paradox of the Dauntless's existence. They watched, their unified consciousness experiencing something alien to their species, absolute bafflement. The hunt for the human vessel had become less about capture and more about understanding how a supposedly primitive species had managed to break reality in ways the Varlaxians had never imagined possible. "They're hailing us," Sarah Martinez announced, just as Amanda was attempting to explain why turning their ship into a mathematical impossibility hadn't killed them all. "Oh, thank God," Rodriguez muttered. Maybe we can explain ourselves before they try to break physics again. The main screen flickered to life, revealing what appeared to be a beam made of living crystal. Light rippled through its faceted form in complex patterns that seemed to carry meaning. Behind it, other crystalline forms shifted and flowed in perfect synchronization. Unidentified vessel. The beam's thoughts translated directly into their minds. You have violated the laws of physics, reality, and our domain. Surrender your impossible ship for study. Amanda took a slow sip of her now stone-cold coffee, studying the crystalline being with the same intense curiosity she usually reserved for quantum equations. That's a fascinating offer, she replied. But I have a counter-proposal. The Varlaxian consciousness rippled with surprise. No species had ever countered their demands. Ever. We're approaching the maze of mirrors, Amanda continued, pointing to a region of space ahead where reality seemed to fracture and split. It's why we chose this testing route. The quantum fluctuations make it perfect for studying space-time manipulation. I propose a race. The bridge crew turned to stare at her. Sarah mouthed, "What are you doing?" While Rodriguez quietly began calculating escape trajectories. The crystalline being shifted colors rapidly. A race. Through the maze of mirrors. That sector is impossible to navigate safely. The reality fractures. Exactly. Amanda's eyes lit up with the kind of enthusiasm that had always worried her academic advisors. The perfect test environment. If your ships are superior, if your understanding of physics is truly absolute, then proving it should be simple. She paused, then added with a grin, unless you're not confident in your mastery of space-time. The Varlaxian consciousness erupted in a cascade of colors. Vilera's form crystallized into a sharp-edged configuration that radiated authority. You dare question our mastery? We have ruled space and time for millennia. Then this should be easy. Amanda held up her paper crane. One ship each. Through the maze. First one to the other side wins. If you win, we surrender our ship for study. If we win, you share your understanding of quantum crystal technology. Doctor, Rodriguez whispered urgently, the maze of mirrors has a 99.9% fatality rate for normal ships. Good thing we're not normal then. Amanda didn't take her eyes off the crystalline being. Well, are the kings of the universe afraid of a little race? The Varlaxian consciousness churned with calculations and probability matrices. Their ships were perfect, their understanding of physics absolute. This primitive vessel, with its impossible movements, was an aberration. A race would prove their superiority once and for all. We accept, Vilera announced, our flagship against your vessel, through the maze of mirrors. As the transmission ended, the bridge erupted into chaos. Have you lost your mind? Sarah demanded. The maze tears ships apart. Reality literally breaks down in there. Amanda turned to her crew, her expression serious for the first time. Look at their ships, their technology. They understand physics perfectly, and that's their weakness. They see space-time as an absolute system of rules. We see it as something to play with, to fold and reshape. She pointed to the approaching maze, where space itself seemed to shatter into countless refractions. In there, their perfect understanding of physics will be useless. Because in the maze, physics itself breaks down. And who better to navigate broken physics than the people who just turned their ship into a Klein bottle for fun? Rodriguez shook his head, but he was smiling. NASA is going to kill us, if we survive. Probably. Amanda agreed, returning to her station. Sarah, start scanning the maze's quantum structure. Rodriguez, plot us a course that ignores everything we know about logical space-time geometry. And someone get me fresh coffee. If we're going to challenge the kings of the universe to a race through broken reality, I want to be properly caffeinated. The crystalline flagship of the Varlaxian fleet moved into position beside them, its perfect form gleaming with absolute certainty. Ahead, the maze of mirrors beckoned, a realm where reality itself went to die. The edge of the maze of mirrors looked like someone had taken reality and shattered it with a hammer. Fragments of space-time twisted and refracted, creating infinite recursions of everything that entered their domain. The Varlaxian flagship gleamed perfectly against this chaos, its crystalline form calculating exact trajectories through the madness. Beside it, the RSS Dauntless hummed as Amanda made final adjustments to the origami drive. "Final system check," she announced, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. "Rodriguez, how's our reality compensation?" "Buffers at maximum. Though I should point out that maximum is a relative term when reality stops making sense." He gestured to the sensor displays, which were already starting to show impossible readings. "The maze is doing things to physics that would make Einstein cry." "Perfect." Amanda grinned, picking up her paper crane and setting it carefully on her console. "Sarah, how's our competition looking?" Sarah studied her readings with a frown. They're actually plotting every possible quantum variance in their path. Their computational power is incredible. They're mapping safe routes through chaos itself. Good for them. Amanda took a sip of her fresh coffee. "We're going to do something much simpler. We're going to treat space-time like paper and fold our way through." The race began without ceremony. The Varlaxian flagship moved forward with perfect precision, its crystalline form analyzing and adapting to each reality fracture it encountered. It was beautiful, methodical, and absolutely by the book, assuming the book was written by gods. The Dauntless, on the other hand, immediately turned itself inside out. "Doctor," Rodriguez called out, his voice surprisingly calm, "we just inverted our spatial dimensions. The hull is technically now our core, and our core is technically our hull." "Interesting." Amanda watched the readings with academic fascination. "Are we dead?" "Surprisingly, no." "Then keep going." "Sarah, what's happening to local space-time?" Sarah's laugh had a slightly hysterical edge. "What isn't happening to it? The maze is reflecting our inversions, creating pocket universes that last microseconds. We're surfing on quantum foam through broken reality." Ahead of them, the Varlaxian flagship encountered its first major challenge, a section of the maze where multiple realities overlapped. Their perfect calculations stuttered as they tried to plot a course through contradicting versions of space-time. The Dauntless approached the same section at what appeared to be a right angle to normal space. Amanda studied the overlapping realities for a moment, then smiled. "You know what this reminds me of?" "Please don't say origami," Rodriguez muttered. "Those paper fortune tellers we used to make in school. The ones that folded in on themselves." Amanda's fingers flew across the controls. "Reality's doing the same thing here. So instead of trying to navigate through it, the Dauntless folded itself through 5 dimensions at once, briefly existing in all overlapping realities simultaneously before popping out the other side. Behind them, they could hear the Varlaxian consciousness broadcasting pure mathematical outrage. "That's not possible." The thought crashed through their minds. "You cannot exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously." "Watch me," Amanda called back, although they probably couldn't hear her. "Rodriguez, how many laws of physics have we broken so far?" "I lost count after 20. Also, I think we just invented 3 new ones by accident." The race continued through the heart of the maze, where reality itself seemed to give up on making sense. The Varlaxian flagship followed its perfect calculations with increasing desperation, while the Dauntless treated physics like suggestions rather than laws. "We're approaching the densest part of the maze," Sarah reported. "Reality fractures are multiplying exponentially. The Varlaxians are having to recalculate their course every microsecond." Amanda nodded, watching their competition struggle with the chaos. "Want to see something really interesting? Rodriguez, initiate the Mobius fold." "The what now?" "Remember when we turned the ship into a climb bottle? Like that, but twisted. Let's show them what happens when you stop trying to follow the rules and start making them up instead." The Dauntless began to fold again, but this time, It folded reality with it. The Mobius fold did exactly what Amanda predicted. It broke the Varlaxians' minds. They've stopped, Sarah announced, watching their competitors through what remained of their functioning sensors. Their entire consciousness is locked in some kind of recursive loop trying to process what we just did. The Varlaxian flagship hung motionless in the heart of the maze, its crystalline form cycling through colors as its unified consciousness attempted to comprehend how the Dauntless had just turned local spacetime into a one-sided surface. "Doctor," Rodriguez called out, "I think we broke space." Amanda looked up from her calculations to see reality literally unraveling around them. The maze of mirrors was living up to its name, creating infinite reflections of their impossible maneuver. Each reflection spawned its own set of physical laws, which immediately contradicted each other. "Fascinating," she muttered, scribbling equations on her whiteboard. "We're generating quantum paradoxes faster than reality can resolve them." "Sarah, are you getting readings on this? Which version of reality would you like readings from?" "I'm currently detecting 12 distinct sets of physical laws. Also, I think we just invented time by accident." The Varlaxian consciousness finally recovered enough to broadcast a message. "CEAC, your violations of CAUSALITY MEMEDA. Amanda keyed the comm. "Why? We're just getting to the good part. Rodriguez, execute the Tesseract protocol." "The what now?" "Remember when we were running simulations and found out we could theoretically fold space into a four-dimensional hypercube?" Her eyes gleamed with the kind of enthusiasm that had gotten her banned from 3 different physics labs. "Let's do that." The Dauntless shuddered as its origami drive engaged in ways its designers had specifically warned against. Space-time around the ship began to fold into impossible geometries, creating a bubble of reality that existed in 4 spatial dimensions. Inside the Varlaxian flagship, Velaris consciousness was experiencing something entirely new: chaos. Their perfect understanding of physics, refined over millennia, was being systematically destroyed by a human vessel that treated the fundamental laws of reality like a child's puzzle book. How? The thought echoed through the crystalline network. How are they doing this without destroying themselves? The answer, though they couldn't comprehend it, was simple. The humans didn't know they couldn't. "Doctor," Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the fact that his console was now technically behind, in front of, and perpendicular to itself all at once. "We're maintaining stable 4-dimensional geometry. Also, I think we just proved string theory wrong." "Or right. The math is getting weird." Amanda nodded, adding another equation to her increasingly non-Euclidean whiteboard. "Sarah, how's our competition doing?" "Still trying to compute a safe path through conventional spacetime. They don't seem to realize that conventional spacetime stopped existing here about 3 impossibilities ago." The maze of mirrors responded to the Dauntless's Tesseract configuration by spawning even more reality fractures, each one reflecting and refracting the ship's impossible geometry. The effect cascaded through local spacetime, creating a kaleidoscope of broken physics that would have made Stephen Hawking both proud and terrified. "You know what's really interesting?" Amanda mused, watching reality tear itself apart around them. "They keep trying to follow rules that don't exist anymore. It's like they've never considered that physics might be more flexible than they thought." As if to prove her point, the Varlaxian flagship attempted another perfectly calculated maneuver, only to find that the laws it was calculating against had changed 3 times in the last microsecond. "Should we help them?" Sarah asked, watching the crystalline vessel struggle. Amanda considered this, then smiled. "Actually, yes. Open a channel." The communication link crackled with quantum static as reality continued to misbehave around them. The Varlaxian consciousness responded, their thoughts tinged with what might have been desperation. "Ready for a physics lesson?" Amanda asked, holding up her paper crane. "First rule of navigating impossible space: stop assuming anything is impossible." Rodriguez, show them the crane fold. The Dauntless began to move again, but this time, it moved in ways that even the maze of mirrors had never seen before. It was time to teach the kings of the universe a lesson about the true nature of reality, whether reality liked it or not. Think of reality like paper, Amanda explained to the Varlaxian consciousness, while the maze of mirrors continued to shatter around them. It has rules, yes, but those rules can be bent, folded, if you will. The Varlaxian flagship hung in space beside the Dauntless, its crystalline form shifting through shades of confusion and dawning comprehension. Around both ships, reality continued to fracture and reform, creating patterns that defied conventional physics. But the laws of space-time are absolute. Velura's thoughts broadcast. We have enforced them for millennia. You've enforced what you understood of them, Amanda corrected, sketching a new diagram on her whiteboard. Rodriguez, demonstrate the crane fold again, but slower this time. Let them see how we're manipulating local space-time. The Dauntless began to move, but this time, its movements were deliberate, educational. The origami drive engaged in a carefully controlled sequence, showing exactly how space could be folded around itself. Impossible, the Varlaxian consciousness murmured, but there was something new in their thought voice. Wonder. Sarah, Amanda called. Show them our sensor readings. Let them see what we're seeing. The data streamed between the ships, raw information about how reality behaved when you stopped treating it as an immutable system. The Varlaxians' perfect crystalline minds began to process the information, and for the first time in millennia, they learned something new. Your drive, Velura's thoughts came hesitantly. It doesn't follow established quantum mathematics. Because we didn't know what couldn't be done, Amanda explained, grinning. We didn't start with perfect knowledge. We started with questions, with what if and why not. Sometimes being wrong teaches you more than being right. The Varlaxian flagship began to move, attempting to mimic the Dauntless's simple fold. Their first attempt created a cascade of errors through their unified consciousness. Their second attempt fractured local space-time in 3 new ways. Their third attempt. They did it, Sarah announced, shocked. They actually managed a basic space fold. The Varlaxian consciousness exploded with colors of revelation. This defies every principle we have maintained for 10,000 years. Good, Amanda replied. Sometimes principles need defying. Rodriguez, show them the butterfly fold next. Let's really blow their minds. As the Dauntless demonstrated increasingly complex space-time manipulations, the Varlaxians began to understand. Their perfect knowledge, their absolute certainty, had become their greatest limitation. They had stopped questioning, stopped exploring, stopped imagining what could be possible. Your species, Velura broadcast, their thoughts filled with a new respect. You achieve these things because you do not know they are impossible. We achieve them because we refuse to accept that anything is impossible, Amanda corrected. We see limits as challenges, not absolutes. Watch this. Rodriguez, execute the double helix fold. The Dauntless began to spiral through dimensions, creating a DNA-like pattern in space-time itself. The Varlaxians watched in fascination as their sensors tried to comprehend the maneuver. Your chaos, Velura realized, it is not chaos at all. It is creativity. Exactly. Amanda's excitement was palpable. Physics isn't just a set of rules to be followed. It's a language to be played with, a puzzle to be solved in new ways. Sometimes you have to fold the page to see what's written on the other side. The maze of mirrors around them seemed to respond to this revelation, its fractures taking on new patterns, less chaotic and more artistic. Reality wasn't breaking. It was dancing. We have been kings, the Varlaxian consciousness broadcast, but we have ruled over a kingdom we never truly understood. Amanda nodded, watching as the crystalline flagship attempted another fold, this time with more confidence. Sometimes the best way to understand something is to stop trying to control it and start trying to learn from it instead. In the heart of the maze, where physics itself went to break its own rules, two vastly different civilizations began to understand a fundamental truth. The universe wasn't a set of laws to be enforced, but a canvas of infinite possibilities waiting to be explored. As both ships emerged from the maze of mirrors, reality settled around them like ripples smoothing on a pond. The Varlaxian flagship's crystalline form pulsed with new patterns, less rigid, more flowing, while the Dauntless hummed with the satisfaction of machinery that had done the impossible and lived to tell about it. Final readings compiled, Sarah announced, her voice filled with awe. We've documented 47 new quantum states, invented 16 theoretical dimensions, and somehow proved that string theory was both right and wrong simultaneously. Also, I think we accidentally solved dark matter. Amanda nodded, adding one final equation to her now thoroughly non-Euclidean whiteboard. Not bad for a test flight. Rodriguez, how's our origami drive? Running at 104% efficiency, he reported with a grin. Pretty sure we broke mathematics somewhere in there, but in a good way. The Varlaxian consciousness reached out, its thoughts carrying a new harmony, one that spoke of wonder rather than certainty. We must ask, who won the race? Amanda laughed, picking up her paper crane. I think we both did. You learned that perfect knowledge isn't always perfect, and we learned that our drive works better than we ever imagined. Speaking of which, she held up the crane. Would you like to learn how to make one of these? The request rippled through the Varlaxian collective consciousness, creating patterns of surprise and curiosity. Vilara's form shifted closer to their view screen. You would teach us your paper folding art. It's where it all started, Amanda explained. Understanding how a flat piece of paper could become a three-dimensional shape led to understanding how space itself could be folded. Sometimes the simplest things teach the most profound lessons. The next few hours were perhaps the strangest first contact in human history. The crew of the Dauntless taught the ancient rulers of known space how to fold paper cranes, while the Varlaxians shared insights about quantum crystalline technology. Both species found themselves learning things they had never expected. Your crystalline computing, Amanda mused, examining the data they'd shared. It's beautiful. We never thought to use quantum states that way. And we never thought to simply ignore quantum states entirely, Vilara responded, their consciousness warm with new understanding. Perhaps that is why you succeeded where we could not. You embrace uncertainty as a tool rather than an enemy. Sarah looked up from her station. Doctor, you might want to see this. The quantum fluctuations from the maze, they're creating new patterns. It's like reality itself learned something from our little adventure. On their sensors, they could see the maze of mirrors shifting, its chaotic fractures taking on more organized forms. The physical laws that broke down within its boundaries weren't simply shattering anymore. They were reforming into new configurations, new possibilities. We have been kings, Vilara broadcast, but perhaps it is time for the universe to have partners instead of rulers. Your species has shown us that there is more to reality than we ever imagined. Amanda smiled, setting her paper crane on the console. And your species has shown us that even the most established truths can learn new tricks. So, what happens now? The Varlaxian consciousness rippled with what might have been laughter, a concept they had just learned from observing the human crew. Now we explore together. You have your origami drive, we have our quantum crystals. Imagine what we might discover if we combine them. Think bigger, Amanda suggested, her eyes sparkling with the kind of curiosity that had led them here in the first place. Imagine what we'll discover when we stop trying to understand everything and start trying to imagine everything instead. The Varlaxian flagship's crystalline form shifted into a new configuration, one that echoed the shape of Amanda's paper crane. A symbol, perhaps of a new era in the universe's history. The kings had learned to be students again, and their teachers had never known they couldn't fail. Together, they had proven that the greatest power in the universe wasn't control or knowledge, but the simple, profound ability to look at reality and ask, what if? And somewhere in the depths of space, a paper crane sat on a console, its simple folds containing the secret that had changed everything.